August 15, 1971. A Sunday night, President Nixon appears on television for 11 minutes. 11 minutes that changed everything. He announces America will no longer convert dollars to gold. The Bretton Woods system dies. The dollar becomes paper-backed by nothing but trust. And most Americans watching had no idea they'd just witnessed the beginning of the end. Not the end of America. The end of American economic dominance. It's been 53 years. The consequences are just now becoming visible. And they're showing up in your grocery cart. In 1960, $1 bought you 12 gallons of gas. Today, less than 1 gallon, same dollar, different values. Or maybe not the same dollar at all. What if I told you that every empire that dominated global trade eventually lost that position the exact same way? Not through war, not through invasion, through currency. And what if I told you we're watching the final act right now? Your rent went up 35% in 4 years. Your healthcare costs doubled in a decade. Your student loan payment equals your grocery bill. That's not a coincidence. That's the decline of the empire. Stage by stage, dollar by dollar. And there's a pattern here. A pattern that's played out 4 times before. Rome, Spain, Britain, and now we. To understand what's happening to your wallet right now, we need to go back. Way back. Because this story doesn't start in 1971. It started 2,000 years ago with an empire that thought it would last forever, just like we did. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, the rhyme is becoming obvious. What I'm about to show you isn't taught in economics classes. It's too uncomfortable, too inconvenient, but it's documented in every historical archive. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Here's what they don't connect to you. Every global reserve currency in history eventually collapses. Not might collapse, does collapse, the average lifespan. 94 years? Source: Currency Wars by James Rickards. The dollar became the global reserve currency in 1944. That was 80 years ago. We're not special. We're not different. We're just next in line. And the warning signs aren't subtle anymore. They're showing up every time you swipe your card. If your paycheck feels smaller, even though the number stayed the same, you're not imagining it. If groceries that used to cost $100 now cost $180, that's not inflation. That's currency debasement. The same thing that destroyed Rome. The same thing that bankrupted Spain. The same thing that ended British dominance. Different century, same pattern, same stages, and we're further along than most people realize. Let me take you to Rome, 235 AD. The empire stretches from Scotland to Syria. 3 continents, 50 million people. Trade flows through Rome like water through aqueducts. The denarius is the world's reserve currency. If you wanted to trade anywhere in the known world, you used Roman coins. Merchants in China accepted denarii. That's power, that's dominance. That's what being the global reserve currency means. They thought it would last forever. Every empire does. Emperor Septimius Severus sits on a throne of unprecedented wealth. But wars are expensive. Germania won't conquer itself. Soldiers demand higher pay. The treasury faces a choice: raise taxes and cause rebellion, or reduce the silver content in the coins. Just a little, nobody will notice. It's logical. It's practical. It's the beginning of the end. He reduces silver content from 95% to 90%. 5%. The coins look identical. They spend the same. Problem solved. Except it wasn't solved. It was postponed. 10 years have passed. Another emperor faces the same problem. He reduces silver to 80%, then 70%, then 50%. By 268 AD, the denarius contained just 5% silver. Source: The Fall of the Roman Empire by Peter Heather, a coin that financed an empire, is now worthless copper with a silver coating. And here's what happened next. Trade collapsed. Not slowly, rapidly. Within 30 years, the Mediterranean trade network fractured. Cities that had flourished for centuries emptied out. The tax base evaporated. And Rome, the eternal city, began its long decline into irrelevance. Marcus Aurelius, Antoninus not, the philosopher-emperor, a different Marcus, was a grain merchant in Carthage. His family had traded across the Mediterranean for 4 generations. In 250 AD, his warehouse held 6 months of inventory. By 270 AD, he couldn't afford to restock for 1 month. The denarii he'd saved his entire life wouldn't buy a week's worth of grain. The coins were still there. The value had vanished. That's what currency debasement does, not to empires, to families, to you. Is your savings account losing value? That's Marcus in Carthage. Different millennium, same trap. 3 warning signs appeared before the collapse. First, currency debasement masked as necessity. We have no choice, they said. There's always a choice. Second, price instability. Bread cost different amounts every week because merchants couldn't predict currency value. Third, trade partners losing trust. By 280 AD, Persian merchants refused Roman coins. They wanted gold. Real value, not promises. Sound familiar? China and Russia settling oil trades in yuan. Saudi Arabia accepts payment in currencies other than dollars. Source, Reuters. March 2023 history doesn't repeat, but it echoes. But here's what keeps me up at night. Rome's collapse took 50 years from first debasement to trade system failure. We're in year 53 since Nixon ended gold backing. The timeline matches perfectly. And we're seeing sign 3 trade partners losing trust. The echoes are getting louder. This pattern didn't end with Rome. It repeated 13 centuries later in an empire that thought they'd figured it out. Spain, 1556, Charles V abdicates. His son Philip II inherits an empire where the sun never sets. Colonies across 2 continents, gold and silver flowing from the New World by the ton. Seville's port handles more wealth than any city in history. They're funding universities, building cathedrals, and fielding the world's most powerful navy. They control global trade routes. The Spanish dollar becomes the world's reserve currency, used from Manila to Amsterdam. This is the peak empire. They think the wealth will last forever. It won't. Here's the problem nobody anticipated. The more gold you import, the less it's worth. Basic economics that empires always forget. In 1550, a loaf of bread cost 2 maravedis. By Itzen Liubai, 8 maravedis. By Ilo Wuling, 20 maravedis. Source, The Spanish Empire, by Henry Coman. The gold is still there. Mountains of it, but it can't buy what it used to. Spain becomes simultaneously the richest and the poorest empire on earth. How does that happen? Currency debasement through abundance. Isabella Maria Rodriguez lived in Madrid. Her husband worked the docks where treasure ships unloaded. Good job, stable income. In 1580, they afforded meat twice weekly, wine with dinner, new clothes each season. By 1620, meat became a monthly luxury. Wine on special occasions. Clothes were patched and repatched. Their income hadn't decreased. Prices had increased. That's inflation. Silent, steady, devastating. Your grocery bill jumping 40% while your salary stays flat. That's Isabella in 1620. Same pattern, different empires. Spain defaulted on its debts in 1557, 1560, 1575, and 1596. 4 times in 40 years. Source, This Time is Different by Reinhardt and Rogoff. The richest empire on earth couldn't pay its bills. Why? Because having money and having value aren't the same thing. By 1650, the Spanish dollar was losing its status as reserve currency. The Dutch guilder was rising. Trade routes shifted north. Spain's economy collapsed, the empire fragmented. And here's the transition point. When your currency loses reserve status, you lose the ability to print your way out of problems. You lose the privilege of debt without consequence. Spain learned that so did the next empire in line. The Dutch guilder dominated trade for a century. Then came Britain, 1815. Waterloo. Napoleon was defeated. Britain emerges as the superpower. The pound sterling becomes the global reserve currency. The sun never sets on the British Empire. Trade from India to Canada to Australia flows through London. They control the seas. They control commerce. They think they're invincible. They're not. They just don't know it yet. World War I changes everything. The war costs Britain $40 billion. Source, The Economic Consequences of the Peace by John Maynard Keynes. That's equivalent to $2 trillion today. The empire goes from creditor to debtor in 4 years. By 1918, Britain owed America more than it owned. The debt is crushing. The pound weakens. Trade partners notice. In 1920, America became the world's largest economy. The transition is beginning, but Britain refuses to accept it. Richard Pemberton worked at a textile mill in Manchester. 42 years at the same factory. He'd saved £500 by 1914. That was 2 years' salary. Security, retirement. Then came the war. By 1920, his £500 bought half what it used to. By 1930, a quarter. He never stopped working. He died in 1946 at age 71 on the factory floor because retirement was impossible. The empire won the war but lost the economy. Richard paid the price. Your 401k losing purchasing power. That's Richard in Manchester. Different century, same pattern. 3 signs appeared again. Currency debasement. Britain left the gold standard in 1931. Price instability. Inflation swung wildly between 5% and 15% throughout the 1920s. Source: Bank of England Historical Database. Trade partner distrust. By 1940, international trade was settling in dollars, not pounds. The empire's financial dominance ended decades before the empire itself dissolved. That's the pattern. Economic collapse precedes political collapse. Always, but here's where it gets interesting. There's a gap. A delay between losing reserve currency status and the general population feeling it. For Britain, that gap was 25 years. The pound lost reserve status in the 1940s. British citizens felt the full impact in the 1960s and 70s. Stagflation strikes the sick man of Europe. The wealth erosion happened first. The quality of life collapse came later. Remember that. It's important for what's happening now. Britain's decline created a vacuum. America filled it. Bretton Woods, 1944. 44 nations gather in New Hampshire. They create a new global financial system. The dollar, backed by gold, becomes the world's reserve currency. Every other currency pegs to the dollar. The dollar pegs to gold at $35 per ounce. It's stable, it's structured, it works. For 27 years, it worked. Then came August 15, 1971. Nixon faces a problem. Vietnam War costs are exploding. Social programs are expanding. Other nations are converting dollars to gold faster than America can supply. France alone converts $1.5 billion. Source: Federal Reserve Historical Archives. The gold reserves are draining. Nixon has a choice: honor the gold conversion and face economic restructuring, or close the gold window. He closes it, 11 minutes on television. The Bretton Woods system ends. The dollar becomes pure fiat currency, backed by nothing but trust and military power. Most Americans watching had no idea what just happened. They should have, because that was the moment, that was when the clock started ticking on American economic dominance. Here's what changed. Before 1971, printing money had limits. Gold backing imposed discipline. After 1971, money printing had no ceiling. The national debt in 1971, $398 billion. Today, $35.7 trillion. Source: U.S. Treasury. October 2024, that's an 8,871% increase. The population grew 64%. The debt grew 8,871%. That's not economic growth, that's currency debasement. Rome all over again, just with computers instead of coins. Robert Chen emigrated from Taiwan in 1968. He worked as an engineer in California. He saved carefully. By 1975, he'd saved $30,000. That was enough for a house down payment plus emergency funds. He waited for the right time to buy. By 1980, houses that cost $40,000 in 1975 cost $120,000. His savings hadn't shrunk. Their purchasing power had evaporated. He rented for another decade, never caught up. That's what happened post-1971. Savings became a losing game. Debt became the winning strategy. The entire economic structure inverted. Your inability to save while people in the 1960s could. That's not your fault. It's structural. It's designed. It's the consequence of abandoning gold backing. 53 years later, here's where we are. The national debt equals 123% of GDP. We're spending $1.1 trillion annually just on interest payments. Source: Congressional Budget Office, 2024, that's more than defense spending, more than Medicare. We're paying interest on debt with more debt. That's a spiral. That's terminal. And now the consequences are visible in your household budget. Let me show you exactly what empire decline looks like at the grocery store. Eggs, $1.50 in 2020, $5.20 now. Source: USDA Agricultural Marketing Service, that's a 247% increase. Ground beef, $3.89 per pound in 2020, $6.50 now. Source: Bureau of Labor Statistics. Food index bread, $1.30 in 2020, $3.20 now. These aren't luxury items. These are the basics, and they're becoming unaffordable. That's what currency debasement looks like, not in history books, in your shopping cart. Rent tells the same story. Average monthly rent in major cities, $1,500 in 2020, $2,025 now. Source: Zillow Rent Index, October 2024. That's $6,300 extra per year. Did your salary increase $6,300? Healthcare premiums up 47% in 5 years. Source: Kaiser Family Foundation, 2024 student loan debt, $1.77 trillion total, $503 average monthly payment. Source: Federal Reserve Consumer Credit, 2024 gasoline, $2.25 per gallon in 2020, $3.85 now. Source: U.S. Energy Information Administration. Added up, housing, plus $6,300 annually. Healthcare, $2,400 annually. Groceries, $3,600 annually. Transportation, $1,200 annually. That's $13,500 in additional annual costs. The median wage increase over the same period, $2,100. Source: Bureau of Labor Statistics Wage Data. 2024, you're falling behind by $11,400 every year. That's not bad budgeting. That's an empire decline showing up in your bank account. If you saved $10,000 in 2020, it has the purchasing power of $8,200 today. Source: CPI inflation calculator. You didn't spend it. It just lost value. That's a 1.8% loss per year over 10 years. Your $10,000 becomes $6,800 in purchasing power. Over 30 years, $3,900. Your retirement planning assumes your savings hold value. They won't, not in a declining reserve currency. That's the part financial advisors don't mention. They can't, because acknowledging it means acknowledging the entire system is breaking. But here's what should terrify you. We're not at the point of collapse yet. We're at the late warning stage. The same stage Spain reached in 1590. The same stage Britain reached in 1935. The stage where trade partners start looking for alternatives. And they are the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa are developing alternative payment systems. Source: BRICS Summit Joint Statement. August 2023, China and Saudi Arabia settled an oil transaction in yuan in 2023. Russia and India trade in rubles and rupees, bypassing dollars entirely. Source: Reuters Financial News, 2023. This is sign 3, the final warning. When trade partners stop using your currency, reserve status erodes. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, then suddenly. Britain maintained reserve status from 1815 to 1944, 129 years. But the real decline happened in the final 20 years. The dollar has been a reserve currency since 1944. 80 years. If we follow the same timeline, we're in the final 20-year window. The erosion is accelerating, and you're feeling it every time you check prices. The pattern is clear. Currency debasement. Check. We've increased money supply 800% since 1971. Price instability. Check. Inflation swings between 2% and 8% year to year. Trade partner distrust. Check. BRICS developing alternatives. We're at stage 3. Rome collapsed at stage 3. Spain collapsed at stage 3. Britain declined at stage 3. Why do we think we're different? Technology won't save us. Rome had concrete and aqueducts. Spain had navigation technology. Britain had railroads and telegraphs. Technology creates efficiency, but it doesn't prevent economic cycles. Human psychology doesn't change. Greed, fear, denial, these are constants. We're watching the same pattern with the same psychology, just with smartphones instead of sailing ships. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Reserve currency status is a privilege, not a right. It's granted by trading partners who trust your currency's stability. When trust erodes, status erodes, and trust is eroding, not quickly, not obviously, but measurably. The dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves was 71% in 1999. By 2023, it's 58%. Source: IMF currency composition of official foreign exchange reserves. That's not collapse. That's decline. Your declining purchasing power isn't random. It's not temporary. It's structural. It's the consequence of 53 years of unlimited money printing. The national debt will never be repaid. It can't be. The only option is to inflate it away. Make the debt smaller by making the dollar smaller. But that means making your savings smaller. Your paycheck is smaller. Your future is smaller. That's the trade-off. The empire survives by sacrificing its citizens' purchasing power. That's how every empire in this position has responded. We're not different. We're just next. For empires, for collapses. Same pattern, same stages, same warning signs. Rome thought their military made them invincible. Spain thought their gold would last forever. Britain thought their navy protected their economy. America thinks our technology and military make us special. Every empire believes they're the exception. Every empire is wrong. The pattern doesn't care about exceptionalism, it cares about fundamentals, and our fundamentals are breaking. So, what does this mean for you? For your family? For the money you've saved and the paycheck you earn? It means the game has changed. The rules your parents followed don't work anymore. Saving in dollars is a losing strategy when dollars lose value yearly. The middle class that thrived post-World War II isn't coming back. It was built on America being the undisputed economic superpower. That era is ending. Not ended, ending. The transition takes decades, but it's happening. And your grocery bill is the early warning system. History gives us one advantage: pattern recognition. Rome didn't see it coming. Spain didn't understand it. Britain denied it until it was obvious. We have their examples. We can see the pattern. The question is, do we act on it? Or do we follow the same path and hope for a different outcome? There's one decision every reserve currency empire made that sealed their fate. One choice that looked logical at the time but proved catastrophic. Rome made it, Spain made it, Britain made it, America made it in 1971. And we're doubling down on it right now. That decision, choosing short-term relief over long-term stability, printing money instead of facing fiscal discipline, every single time. And every single time, the citizens paid the price 20 to 30 years later. We're 25 years from when that acceleration began in 2000. The bill is coming due. Your grocery receipt tells the story. Your rent increase writes the chapter. Your shrinking paycheck composes the verse. This isn't about politics. This isn't about partisanship. This is about mathematics and history. The debt is unsustainable. The currency is weakening. The trade partners are building alternatives. These are facts, documented, measured, undeniable. The only question is, when does gradual decline become sudden collapse? Nobody knows, but every empire thought they had more time than they did, until they didn't. So here's what I can't stop thinking about. 4 empires fell. 4 times, the citizens suffered while the institutions survived. The Roman Empire collapsed, but the Roman Catholic Church endured. The Spanish Empire dissolved, but Spanish culture survived. The British Empire ended, but Britain adapted. America won't disappear, but American economic dominance is already. And the question becomes, who pays the price? History says it's the middle class, the savers, the people who played by the rules. That might be you, that might be me. That's what keeps me up at night. Are we the generation that breaks the cycle, or are we the generation that repeats it? History is watching, and right now, we're following the script perfectly. So let me ask you this. When did you first realize something was wrong? Was it the grocery store? The rent increase? The moment you looked at your savings and realized it wasn't growing fast enough? Drop a comment. Tell me your story. Because this isn't about governments or empires. It's about real people, real families, real consequences. And I want to know when you felt the shift. When the pattern became visible to you. If this connected dots you hadn't seen before, if this made you think differently about your paycheck and your savings, subscribe, because we're going deeper. Next video, we're going to talk about the one thing you can do, the one strategy that worked for people who survived empire transitions. It's not what financial advisors tell you, it's not what banks want you to know, but it's documented in every major economic collapse. And it might be the difference between surviving the transition and getting crushed by it. Thank you for watching this through to the end. That means you're paying attention, you're thinking, you're questioning. That's how we navigate what's coming. Not by hoping the pattern breaks, by understanding the pattern and adapting to it. I'll see you in the next one.